Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome. Hope everyone had a great new year. This is our first episode of 2023, and it's going to be a good one. My name is Dustin Robinson. I'll be your host for Investor Hotseat, where we ask the tough questions that CEOs need to be prepared to answer. Since this show is about investing, we always have a quick disclaimer. We are not just soliciting investment on this show, and we encourage you to see the full terms and conditions on the psychedelicinvest.com webpage. The agenda for each one of our episodes is a 5-minute presentation from a CEO that will be followed by a 30-minute Q&A by myself. And then we will reserve about 5 to 10 minutes for questions from the audience. So if you have any questions whatsoever, you don't need to wait till the end. Just drop them in the comments box and we will make sure we get to them at the end. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome in Chad Harman, the Psycheceutical. Chad, I'm going to pass it to you for your presentation, and then we're going to jump into Q&A. You have 5 minutes, and you're on the clock.
Thank you, Dustin. It's an honor and pleasure to be with you and your audience today. Our vision when we started Psycheceutical centered around using patented cutting-edge delivery technologies to provide safe and effective bioavailable psychedelic medicines. Try saying that 10 times. That was really, truly the heart of why we created Psycheceutical. Next slide, please. The NeuroDirect patented technology is the first patent we licensed, and it's unique in the fact that it's a method of use patent whereby any topical cream, ointment, or gel in combination with a neuroeffective drug can be applied to the back of the neck of the hairline or the C3, C4. It was invented by Dr. Ronald Ogden. He's a neurologist and neuropsychiatrist out of Sarasota, Florida. And he invented this because he really wanted to help patients avoid traditional toxicity of systemic drug delivery. Our intent to utilize this technology at Psycheceutical was to deliver therapeutics of these remarkable compounds effectively without all the traditional side effects associated with psychedelics, such as nausea, vomiting, hallucinations, lethargy. In some cases, there can be cardiotoxic effects. Next slide, please. The second technology that we licensed is the Janus particle technology, which is a cost-effective and repeatable way of manufacturing highly precise and robust nano to micro-sized particles. This was developed at the University of Michigan by our Chief Science Officer, Dr. Anish Chiteja, and his partner and our board member, Michael Guerin. This technology is critical to our organization as it gives us the ability to precisely tailor compounds to create safer and more effective psychedelic drugs by tuning different size, shape, time release, and even combinations of multiple active compounds encapsulated into a single format. Just think about microdosing and being able to layer that and then have them dose every hour on the hour if that's what we wanted to do. So it gives us those capabilities. Next slide, please. Here are the various compounds and delivery methods that we'll look at to incorporate into our overall drug development pipeline efforts. And as we get through the next slide, you'll see a few different methods that we'll be using. Next slide, please. All right, let me talk a little bit about the team. I'm very proud of the team that we've developed at Psycheceutical. We truly are a veteran team of drug development, technology, and medical experts. We've assembled at Psycheceutical, basically what I call a little dream team here. Already with the team that we've assembled, we've shown in a relatively short period of time our ability to develop a detailed strategy and execution plan and immediately execute on those plans. In fact, a year ahead of schedule, Dustin, where we thought we would be. I'd like to add one more note in terms of the team and its capabilities beyond the expertise is, and I think it's equally important to your audience with these companies and what we do, is I'm continually in awe of them with their tremendous drive and passion to solve these mental health problems for patients. We have a global epidemic problem, and we truly have a team that has the heart to tackle this major challenge we have, and certainly blessed and humbled to be their leader. Next slide, please. Our medical advisory board, what a stud team we have here at Psycheceutical, is led by esteemed neurosurgeon, Dr. Julian Bales. He is tremendous, humble, and one of the most authentic individuals you'll ever meet. And he is extremely knowledgeable and smart, many decades of experience there. So this team really consists of industry leading, practicing medical doctors, including decades of clinical trial experience. The board that we form will be responsible for strategy, direction, execution of the company's clinical and technological development of our patented dosing technologies. Next slide, please. Our expert science team is led by Dr. Anish Tuteja, professor at the University of Michigan. The team is made up of drug development, IP, manufacturing, clinical trial experts with deep knowledge of how to deliver compounds across the blood-brain barrier. Obviously, that's going to be very important now as we start to tailor these compounds, and we want to deliver them to specific receptor sites to avoid a lot of the toxicity. So this team that we developed, they'll be responsible for the drug development strategy and execution. Next slide, please. All right, our business model. So we have a dual revenue model for Psycheceutical, which is a little bit different from our competitors. That will be, really looking to be in the mode of what we've coined co-opetition at Psycheceutical, and that's because we've got these, these tremendous technologies that we love to do co-development and or licensing deals with our competitors. We can't do everything under the sun, and so we want to be a perfect complement and a partner to get these, life-saving medications out to patients and clinicians across the country and globally. So again, we're going to be developing our own drugs and our own, proprietary formulations and creating, more IP as we go along the way. And eventually, once we get these drugs to phase 2 and phase 3, we'll then partner with some of these larger pharmaceutical companies where they'll work a commercialization deal with them. Next slide, please. And this is something we're very, very excited about. Our first drug in the preclinical pipeline, or we're actually just wrapped up our preclinical. Now we're getting right into phase 1 and phase 2 of trial work for the NeuroDirect ketamine topical for PTSD. We're very excited because in the next week or so, you're going to see some PR announcements that's going to reflect phase 1 and phase 2 trial in Australia. So very excited that we've had no announcements from our drug development, and we're going right into phase 1 and phase 2 activities there. Next slide, please.
I think we hit our time, Chad, but it's all good.
Sorry, man. I was trying to run through it as quickly as I could.
All good. 5 minutes is a tight squeeze, so it's all good. But we'll make sure we hit all the points that we need to. So it's great having you on the show. It seems like just yesterday, it was probably over a year ago, my buddy Zappy was telling me about you guys, and he had a lot of very positive things to say. So really appreciate you joining me on the show.
Yeah, pleasure to be here, and thanks to you and your audience.
Absolutely. So I always start off every one of these the same way, asking the same question. So as an investor, I always like to understand the why of the founders. So if you could just talk to us a little bit about what inspired you to get involved in the industry and how this led to you eventually becoming the CEO of Psycheceutical.
Yeah, great question. And so, me personally, Dustin, I spent 2 decades with Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield. They're a very large health insurer. And and I'll keep this brief for those on the call. But what stuck out to me was the patients that would call in when I first started in operations, the desperation in their voice when they're calling in for benefits, when they had a severe mental health crisis or a new neurological disorder. In some cases, almost like you can hear it's like almost a death sentence in their voice, and that really struck me early on in my career. And as I moved along and towards the end, I saw the data on how we were performing therapeutically across the U.S., and I was seeing numbers that were just dramatically dropping in terms of the overall effectiveness. After 2 decades, you think it would be getting better. We would have more and more technology and drug development coming out that would, overcome a lot of these challenges that I saw day in and day out. And that's where I made a fundamental change. I said, I need to do something different. I want to be on the side that provides the therapy that that provides hope to these patients, these consumers that I was hearing on the phone. That desperation just really stuck out to me. And so, fast forward, really, I left Anthem Blue Cross. I spent several years in cannabis because, again, that was a therapeutic that had been demonized for so many years. There was a lot of anecdotal evidence that showed tremendous therapeutic benefits. And so I learned everything from seed to sale, learned a lot about formulations and the compounds and all the constituent parts on how therapeutic cannabis is. And I met Zappy, partner Dave Mahalik, who's the CEO of Coeptus Pharmaceuticals, and our other partner, Mike Lewis. And we were starting to really analyze the market for cannabis, but really psychedelics was really coming up, and we were seeing tremendous clinical results out there. And so for us, we said, there's a tremendous market need. It looks like it's going to take a different path in cannabis. It's going to, it was truly, and that was the birth of the name, Psycheceutical, bringing the best of pharmaceuticals, to psychedelics. So we decided that, we would join forces and build the company off of two very distinct patents that we think are going to be game changers for the industry and for consumers.
It's great. And you just mentioned those technologies you have. So like you mentioned in your intro, you guys have two main delivery technologies, the Genus technology and the NeuroDirect technology. I'd like to dig a little bit deeper into those and understand, kind of the history of how those technologies were developed and how you guys ended up having rights to basically commercialize those technologies. And also, I know our viewers may not be so science savvy. I certainly am not. If you could maybe break down just kind of the science behind it, that would also be helpful.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And so, the first technology we licensed was Dr. Ogden's NeuroDirect technology. And it was remarkable hearing Dr. Ogden talk about the technology when we first met him. He was probably about a decade in when we talked to him about it, where he had dosed close to 7,000 or 8,000 different patients. And let me describe the technology. It's basically a method of use where you place any neuroeffective compound in a topical or liposomal or a fat-based compound in a topical format and apply it at the back of the neck of the hairline, the C3, C4. That's a remarkable place on the body, because when Dr. Ogden was going to submit his patent, he had to apply it at various points on the body to make sure that was the only place that had the remarkable results he was seeing. So that place in the body, he was able to get the patent. But his first drug and how he invented it was for migraine patients. They were taking sumatriptan orally. As many people probably on the call know, a loved one or have been afflicted with a migraine. It's a very debilitating diagnosis. And so oftentimes, if you don't dose quickly enough, you don't have a complete remission. And it's something that will impact you for days, if not weeks in some cases. And so he developed this formulation and had it compounded. And he hooked the first patient up to an EEG to see if there's an electrical response. As one would imagine, there's a lot of anxiety and pain as a result of migraine activity. So your electrical pulse is going off the charts. It's off baseline. And so when he dosed the patient, so he applied the topical, rubbed it in for 30 seconds, and then the patient within 5 to 8 minutes said, "Doctor, I'm feeling a tremendous effect from this, almost a complete remission of symptomology." And Dr. Ogden noticed that the EEG immediately upon applying it, there was an electrochemical reaction, and the patient's anxiety level started to subside immediately. It's not like it was a minute later, Dustin. This was immediate on the EEG. So very remarkable results. And then the patients had a long-lasting effect from it. So, take that in contrast to sumatriptan taken orally. It takes 35, 45 minutes to metabolize, and then you feel the effects. And oftentimes, if you don't catch it early enough, you still have a lot of the symptomology, which is very debilitating. And so here, there was almost a complete remission, and these patients, got the relief that they needed. So again, very remarkable. So he started to really look at other compounds for Parkinson's, for multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's, dementia, and existing drugs taken in the same format. And he was seeing marketable results, documented anecdotal results. And so when I met Dr. Ongden, he was using it for cannabis for many of his patients. And what was profound is that even in THC there was no psychogenic effects, and people were getting those results set so quickly on NeuroDirect, where we think this is going to be a tremendous opportunity for us in the industry, is to really apply this format where there's no psychogenic effects, there's no nausea, no vomiting, there's no lethargy. And then again, we're from an the lens that I wear, Dustin, again, going back to my 2 decades of health insurance, I think about overall cost of care and what insurance is going to reimburse, right? We as investors, or your investors on this call, need to understand what that overall cost of care model and what an insurance company is going to look for. And so this would be a means to potentially avoid going to the psychotherapist or in clinic, and or very, very costly monitoring that goes on, and obviously avoiding a lot of the I guess drag, if you will, of having to drive to and from the appointments. So that's NeuroDirect. I'm sorry, being long-winded there, Dustin, but I wanted to give you guys some context and truly how we're going to use this technology.
No, it's okay. It was long-winded because I actually, my phone actually ended up dying. My internet's not working at home, and I'm on my phone, and the phone was dying. So good thing you were long-winded, and I'm sure you educated the audience quite a bit. So we'll just jump into my next question. So I know you probably just gave some background on these two technologies, just so I understand better. Is the plan to use these two technologies in conjunction with one another, or are these two separate technologies that will be kind of used for different clinical trial programs you guys are going to have?
Yeah, great question. And I didn't get to Janus particle. Let me talk about that real quick. But the Janus particle was created out of University of Michigan, and it's basically a manufacturing technique of manufacturing any size, shape, having multiple compounds into one delivery system or one format of a drug. And why that's important, Dustin, is because what we want to do in the industry is avoid associated toxicity. And so the way we do that is to deliver them right to targeted sites in the body, or in this case, many cases, to the targeted receptor sites in the brain. And so that technology gives us the ability to do that. And what was profound about that technology is they were using it in cancer therapeutic for ovarian cancer drugs. And what they found is with the technology that they had a higher cellular uptake of the drug, of the cancer therapeutic, when it was in a triangular shape versus a spherical or round shape. And so that's very remarkable because, again, it avoided a lot of associated toxicity, and they had a greater therapeutic benefit to that particular drug. So getting to your question of will we use these in combination? That's a great question. And yes, we do. We are in the planning phase of looking at combining both technologies. In one manner is being able to have longer lasting effects, and then again making sure that we can target certain receptor sites in the brain. So that would be something that we are planning and looking at bringing to the forefront here in the next year.
Got it. And right when I was cutting you off on your 5-minute presentation, you were just starting to talk about the ketamine. It sounds like the first compound you're going to be using with this technology is ketamine. So we'd love to talk a little bit about what that program looks like. But what made you guys decide on ketamine as opposed to, all these other psychedelic compounds that are around?
Yeah. When you're looking at a drug development pipeline, as your investors probably know, you want to have some risky options, and you want to have some safer bets. So you want to have a compendium of both in there. And so being a new company, we certainly wanted to de-risk as much as we can, right, and show shareholders, one, that we can select a pipeline that's going to be valuable in the future with a big target, but also that we can execute on. And so the reason why we chose ketamine is, one, it's a Schedule III drug. It's well established, and it's kind of first full circle with one of our technology, Janus particle. Ketamine was synthesized in the University of Michigan back in the 60s. So with that, we felt very confident that, again, it would be considered a 505(b)(2). For those that may or might not know, 505(b)(1) is taking a new drug completely through the clinical trial pathway. It's a much longer, more expensive pathway. 505(b)(2) is for established drugs, and it's a much faster pathway to commercialization. And because and here's the real reason is Dr. Ogden, using his medical license, he's able to prescribe an off-label use of ketamine for his PTSD or severe medically depressed treatment-resistant depression patients. So he was able to have ketamine compounded in his delivery format. And this has been about a year, but we were very fortunate and thankful that we were able to gather some anecdotal evidence from the patients he was dosing at his clinic. And so, in summary, with well over a year now in dosing these patients, he's seen remarkable results for PTSD patients, meaning that these patients didn't respond well to traditional cognitive behavioral therapy and or drug existing SSRIs. And these patients, Dustin, responded 85% of the time. Those are remarkable results we just don't see. These patients had immediate, within 5 to 8 minutes, a reaction where they were able to, their brain is in basically chaos mode, calm their anxiety. They're able to speak clearly for the first time and able to really go back and really address and analyze, those moments and that were either trauma-based or just experiences that were playing in a loop in their mind. So we had a lot of anecdotal evidence that suggested this would be a remarkable first drug to go through the clinical trial pathway.
And so is it PTSD, the indication that you guys are planning to target for this trial?
Yes, sir.
Got it. And, we're seeing for some of these different trials, in the beginning, there was a lot of excitement around this kind of one and done, one macrodose of psilocybin or one macrodose of ketamine. And we're seeing more and more companies kind of going away from that. Compass's phase 2 clinical trials showed some issues with durability. Looks like in their phase 3 trials, they're adding some additional dosages. I know a lot of the ketamine clinics that I talk to are starting to basically require 6 ketamine sessions rather than making it optional and allowing people to just do 1 or 2. What do you guys envision the protocol being for your ketamine neurodirect compound or program?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we're going after a chronic condition. As you mentioned, it's not just one and done type of situation in many of these cases, right? Psychedelic medicines or compounds are very profound and remarkable. But as we get into more of these clinical results, we know that multiple dosing strategies are going to have to be a part of the program. And so we instead of an acute program, which we could have done, but with the anecdotal data with Dr. Ogden, he was seeing remarkable results in after 2 to 3 months of dosing, and then starts to see that curtail as the months go on. So symptoms really started to subside, and then patients were going on an as needed basis. So for investors, right, you want to put on the lens of one, the patient, and the FDA lens, and then you want an investor lens. If you're a one and done situation, that's difficult, right? To have a drug and investing in a drug that's going to be something that's not going to be used on an ongoing basis. And certainly we all think about that and want to have the best possible program for these patients. But what we've seen is that a chronic use of the neurodirect ketamine is the way to go. And what we've seen anecdotally from Dr. Ogden is these patients were able to get off multiple other drugs that were causing a lot of side effects and issues and toxicity. So I would say that based off of Dr. Ogden's observation results, that we're getting them off a multitude of drugs, getting the patient back to normalized state, and getting them back to work, back to really getting them back into full function in society itself. So again, we're very excited about that. Again, chronic condition, Dustin, we think we have something very, very special. And again, the immediate results that we've seen in Dr. Onglin's practices are remarkable.
So is this something for the ketamine neurodirect? Is this something that you envision patients would have a prescription and maybe put it on their neck every single day for a certain amount of months, or is it maybe just a couple days? Is it one every few days? Like how do you envision the actual application of it?
Yeah, and here's the good news, right? Is the patient can dose themselves. If we think about traditional psychedelics, you got to go into the clinic, right? You have to be hooked up to all the monitoring, and that's a big cost and time commitment there. Here, the patients can dose as needed, so as required. Patients can go out, whether at home or I likened it to Dr. Onglin's had a couple patients, they're stuck in traffic and something triggers them. They can dose in the car, right? Because there's no psychogenic effects, or no noted at this point. What he's noted, no issues with lethargy, psychogenic effects, and all that. So we expect to have these patients dosed twice a day on a daily basis, and then as month 2, month 3 comes along, they can reduce the frequency, and then by month 6, 7, what Dr. Onglin is seeing is that they'd be able to do an as needed basis.
So let's talk a little bit about the idea of it being non-hallucinogenic or non-dissociative for ketamine. So I know there's a lot of companies now. It seems like everyone kind of adding some sort of a program where it's taking the hallucination out of the compound. Some describe that as a side effect, like you described. Others, people like Robin Card-Harris, tend to think that subjective psychedelic experience is necessary to get the therapeutic aspects of it. So we'd love to kind of hear like where you fall on that. Obviously you guys are moving this through as a non-hallucinogenic, non-dissociative compound. We'd love to kind of understand like your basis and why you believe that this will still be effective even without that subjective psychedelic experience.
Yeah, and I completely agree with Robin. I mean, these compounds are very profound, and they're therapeutically, certainly the psychogenic or hallucinogenic effects are very profound, and show time and time again remarkable results. Here, what we have to think about is the overall cost of care model. I want to go back to that, and what insurance companies are going to cover. But also, we as an industry, Dustin, we're going to have to train 250,000 or so, therapists to administer, these remarkable compounds, and that's a major undertaking. So I always like to start off with what are the challenges we face as an industry, and this is why we licensed the technology we did, and it really puts us in a good position from a commercialization standpoint, because again, we feel with Dr. Onglin's technology that there is a substantial therapeutic benefit that is anecdotally documented in his practice with well over 300 patients, and the results and the effects are proof positive from those observational results that there is a therapeutic benefit, and patients are getting a relief, and a long-term relief from what we've been able to collect from him. So yes, I do agree that in many cases the taking out the hallucinogenic effects are really not the right strategy. But I think we make a good case and argument for our technology that there is a great therapeutic benefit to delivering them. And again, we still don't, Dustin, I think we still don't know the full mechanism of action of these remarkable compounds. So with neurodirect technology, what Dr. Onglin's hypothesis is, and we're going to test in the phase 1, is that that area of of application, there's the free nerve endings, and those free nerve endings really reach the grand central station, which is the trigeminal nerve complex and the vagus nerve, and those that reaches the central nervous system. So the hypothesis is it reaches the central nervous system, Dustin. So we're bypassing the metabolism, the enzymes in the liver, and thereby avoiding the psychogenic effect. We still don't know if avoiding that metabolism in the liver, if taking that out if it's a byproduct, and we're bypassing that byproduct, and you're still having the same therapeutic benefit of using our technology. Now we're going to be testing for that by pulling what's called the CSF flow, which is this cerebral spinal fluid, so we can test to see if that is truly how neurodirect technology is being administered in the mechanism of action there.
Got it. And let's talk a little bit about the business strategy here. On your slides, you kind of identified the licensing and the formulation strategy, and you plan to either license out or co-develop some of these compounds. So for using the neurodirect ketamine program as an example, how far do you guys expect to take these through clinical trials before potentially partnering up with someone else?
Yeah, so we expect, and I'll use neurodirect ketamine. We expect to go through, in this case, phase 3, to show the safety and efficacy, and then would look to, much larger pharmaceutical company to then, finish off the clinical trials, and then, ultimately commercialize that. Being an early stage company, we certainly will be, we can't compete with the commercialization and the money that, companies like Eli Lilly, Merck, and Johnson and Johnson do, right? So I think many of our competitors will probably be in the same pace in that same strategy, employing that same strategy. But then we are entertaining and working with other competitor companies in the industry to look at co-development and licensing opportunities. We know we can't do everything under the sun, so we would love to work with our competitors, where there's a good fit to deploy our technologies. Because if you look at the life cycle development of traditional pharmaceutical drug development, you've got multiple generations. Generation 1 is taking these drugs and approving a new compound, and then you have drug delivery to have like a generation 2 or generation 3 model. So you have multiple bites at the apple in this industry, and so we're approaching it from the generation 3. We're going to offer our competitors the ability to go right in and have another high value drug target with our delivery technologies.
Got it. And so, that's a little bit of kind of your upstream strategy on partnerships. I'd like to talk about downstream. I know you guys recently announced a collaboration with VV Health that gives you guys an option to purchase them. So we'd love to hear more about, number one, what is VV Health, and how is that, why do you guys see them as a good strategic partner? What are the synergies that you see coming from that strategic relationship?
Yeah, they've been wonderful partners for us. I mean, outstanding individuals, Dr. Anish Dhanarajan, Francesca Minali, and the rest of the Vici team. They've been tremendous. I mean, they're really one of the premier boutique, what we consider a early phase R&D laboratory CGMP firm to phase 2. So they do a lot of drug formulation development. They do a lot of CMC manufacturing. So as we go along, Dustin, through the clinical trial pathway, they'll be able to create new formulations for us, which will obviously create new IP, and then they'll be able to create the phase 1 and phase 2 materials for those trials. And the reason why it makes a lot of sense, one, we've just worked so well together. Both companies, really have gelled well together. And we both see the tremendous opportunity that psychedelics have moving forward. So we both share in the same passion that we have to deliver these life-saving medications to the public. That's first and foremost. But the real challenges and why it made sense for Psycheceutical, the challenge that we face as an industry are there are very few DEA Schedule 1 facilities. Okay. Then coupled with there's very few companies that can synthesize these molecules. And many of our competitors have locked up exclusive license agreements with these DEA Schedule 1 facilities and some of these synthesis licensed companies. So that's driving out a lot of opportunity and thus driving up a lot of clinical trial development costs. So for us, we wanted to lock in this relationship so we can do our own drug development and really build out a very robust drug development pipeline. Because going back to the synthesis, some of the costs out there are astronomical. I mean, we're talking $1,500 a gram to $7,500, even $15,000 a gram. Now consider that when you're doing the numbers and you're converting that into a minimum of a 5-kilogram batch. When you're doing formulations, you're talking hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, just on the production of these formulations, Dustin. So for us, it makes complete economical sense. It gives us all the resources and in-house capabilities to work on our own drugs, and then also it's a revenue generating company. So it give us and our investors the ability to have a revenue producing asset and build out those capabilities for the future.
And so just talking a little bit about the structure of the deal, I think I read somewhere that the expiration date is April of this year. Are you guys looking to actually execute on that option? Are you going to get an extension? And if you are planning to execute, what do you guys actually need to do? Is this a cash purchase option, or is some of it going to be in shares? So what are your kind of expectations with that April date coming up in the next few months?
Sure. Yeah, we definitely expect to execute that option agreement in very short order. So the terms of the deal are it's a $15 million valuation for Vici. And what I will say too is they do have three drugs that are getting ready for commercialization in the next 2 years. Two of them Parkinson's. So it really does fit well with the company and drug pipeline as well. So that's an added bonus for us as well, Dustin. So we've constructed a deal where we would acquire 70% of Vici Health Sciences, $3.2 million in cash, and the rest in form of Psycheceutical Bioscience stock. Now we did have a 9-month option to acquire, and then we have another 3-month extension that is on our shoulders to execute. And then once we do execute, it will be a rolling 30-day average at a 20% discount to market in terms of the converting the Psycheceutical Bioscience stock in the deal. So again, we have control over that decision to execute and when we execute.
Great. And I want to just pivot over to kind of the capital markets approach for Psycheceutical. So I know you guys completed an OTC merger. Want to get a little bit more background on why you guys decided to take that approach, and also hopefully understand, what the future plans are from a capital markets perspective. Are you guys planning to uplist? I know there's some talk around changing the actual name since it's not under Psycheceutical. So yeah, if you give us a little bit of the history on the capital markets of Psycheceutical and what you guys have planned into the future.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, for us, it was very key and strategic. I mean, certainly we could have remained private and raised capital. But for us, we found a target company in Blue Water Venture Incorporated, where there was multiple benefits of the transaction. One is it certainly is a stepping stone for us on our way up to major exchange like the NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange. So that was just the progression of where we're at, where we were going as a company. But more importantly, that particular entity came with a very sophisticated and savvy investor group. Bruce Cassidy is a multi-billionaire, a very savvy entrepreneur, He has had a lot of successes in developing and running and companies and exiting very successfully. So for us, having Bruce as part of the investor team, he was thoroughly excited to accept a board position with the company as well. And so he's been tremendous for us, as well as the rest of the investors that came with BWVI. So for us, it was very key and strategic that we had the partnership that we did with the existing management structure and the investor base that came with BWVI to help us support us along the way up to NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange. As part of that, it came with $1 million in financing. But as we were looking at the space and we were starting to see some of the valuations start to stabilize and go down, if you will. We knew that we were certainly in it for the long run, and companies that have a really robust pipeline and strategy like we do, we know that we need to be on a major exchange. We know we need to raise a tremendous amount of capital to support the overall operations, but more importantly, the IP development and the clinical trial. So to date, Dustin, we've raised close to $8 million. We've been able to really deploy capital very effectively and efficiently, and we're about to really announce some great PR announcements here in the next couple of weeks regarding all the execution that the public has not been able to see that we've done this past year. So what does that mean for us? So we've got in terms of the next capital financing, we definitely need, or we are going to be announcing a next round of capital here in the next, I'd say 30 days, 30 to 45 days to help support the company and its robust drug development pipeline that we'll be able to release. And then also we are working on another drug delivery that we're going to announce very shortly as well. That will be revolutionary. And so we're very excited about that new drug delivery technology, and obviously need the capital to support that. So again, we're on our way up, or this next capital raise will help support the company. We'll then find what we're anticipating is to file our SEC audited financials by early Q2, so we become a fully reporting audited company, and then and then work our way up with various different options of uplisting. Certainly filing an S1. Reverse takeover is always an option. SPACs are always options. So our investment team, they're looking at all various options. One that's going to be very beneficial to us as a company and to our shareholders, and thinking about less dilutive manners, if you will.
Got it. And I'd like to just jump into some more specifics on some of the things you mentioned. So you guys have raised a little under 8 million. What is the current cash position of the company, and what is the current burn that you're going through monthly, and how much do you expect to go out to raise in your next round?
Yeah, we still have a few $1 million in the coffers, so we're still well funded from that perspective. And then so what was the other question? Sorry, Dustin.
You have a few million. I mean, how long, if obviously it's a tough capital markets situation, you guys are going to go out and raise more capital, but how much actual runway do you have with the current capital right now?
Yeah, we have enough to get us under phase 1, phase 2 to middle of next year to help support the program. We do have, like I said, a great investment, team that has a lot of capabilities, and we've got a really great pool of investors that should we need to call upon to help if capital raising becomes an issue in the public markets. We can go back and have internal help with that. So feel very confident that one, our story is very compelling. We offer a differentiation and our ability to deploy capital in a very efficient manner and the ability to execute with the team that we have and by the results that we'll be able to show here very quickly through various PR announcements. So we've had a lot of early discussions in our next round to kind of team that up, and it's gone very, very positively. So we feel very confident that even though it's a distressed market and that there's still a lot of hesitancy to from the market perspective, but we still feel very, very confident that we've got a very compelling story and a compelling team and technology that is is going to drive a lot of tremendous value.
And you've referenced a couple times a supportive investor base. You got one particular investor that's pretty high profile, Kevin Harrington from the Shark Tank. So just curious, kind of what was the impetus for getting Kevin involved with Psycheceutical? I mean, it's great to have just for the industry. I think it's always good to get some of these kind of influencer investors involved, and hopefully it attracts more investors to this space. But just curious how that all came to be.
Yeah, I mean, through our relationships that we have, we were introduced to Kevin, and really described the company and really got to know Kevin on a personal level. The guy is extremely humble. He is very passionate when he represents companies, and he's been doing this a very, very long time, and so his knowledge and expertise was certainly something very attractive to us, but. For him, and this is him, not us. He's got a very soft spot for mental health disease. We all have and know someone, whether it's a loved one or a family member or those around us, that has suffered from some type of major mental health illness, and so he is certainly not immune to that. And so he's been afflicted by it from other family members and friends, and he knows that coming out of COVID, it's only further propagated, the really the spotlight on mental health, as Dr. Bales so eloquently puts it, and he's on the number of many boards, particularly the NCAA, and where he's seen student athletes there. Where it was 1 out of 4. Now he's seen, close to almost half student athlete population start to really vocalize the number of mental health issues they have. And again, Kevin recognized that, but he also recognized the where you want to be differentiated in the market. And so he said, I love the technologies and leading that effort, but also knowing that, you guys are going after, big targets like PTSD and addiction disorders. Those were 2 major areas that he was personally excited to hear about. So, for him, it was the mission. He has a heart for the company, loves the management team, and believes in us, and has been, one of our biggest champions to date on the way we've been able to execute thus far.
That's great. I just found out that I'm going to be on a panel with him at the Psychedelic conference. So I'm looking forward to meeting him. I just got a couple more questions, then we're going to jump into Q&A. So if people have any questions, I already see a bunch popping up, so feel free to drop them in the comments box. So second to last question is, what are your next milestones for the next 6, 12, 18 months? You've kind of alluded to some exciting news. So to the extent you could share with us, what should our viewers be expecting out of you guys in the next 6, 12, 18 months?
Yeah. So very, very exciting news is we're going to start our in-human trials for the neuroketamine in phase 1 and phase 2. And I think we're going to drop next week YouTube. So I think we're safe to say that we'll be conducting those trials in Australia. So very, very excited with the CRO that we've selected. They're world class. And so, in the next 6 months, we're going to be dosing our first patient in phase 1, wrapping up results in our phase 2 or phase 1, and then going right into dosing our first patient in phase 1. or phase 2. So very, very exciting in terms of the overall drug development. Now we have another drug that we've been working on in the background for the past several months. We can't name the compound just yet, but we are going after, again, addiction disorders because we know the fentanyl crisis, the amount of substance abuse disorders are through the roof, especially with the number of mental health disorders coming out of the pandemic, has only further propagated people, wanting to self-medicate even more so than ever. So that's something that we have a heart for, and something we feel very excited that we can provide a solution there. So we expect to do a proof of concept in human trial internationally this year, and then we've got a couple of license agreements that we're working on with very prominent universities to expand our pipeline of drugs for neurological disorders. We're really playing up to the strength of the team. If you look at the team and the expertise, we've got people that have been doing cutting edge research on traumatic brain injury, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia. So we're looking at those indications to fill the pipeline there. Then in terms of our uplisting, so we fully expect to wrap up our next phase of funding by early Q2, and then really start to position ourselves with a real strategy of hopefully listing Q4, if not Q2. Again, that's the plan. As we all know, things can always change in terms of requirements from either NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange, or just the way the market's reacting. So we're very cognizant of that. But again, we in the next 18 months, let me go to kind of 18-month time frame. 18 months, we fully expect to have 6 drugs in various stages of the pipeline, and I think one of the bigger milestones is getting the neurodirect ketamine certainly wrapped up in the phase 2, and getting the phase 3 regulatory plan put together. One thing that I do want to mention, another big value inflection point for investors, is in mid this year, we fully expect to file our open our IND study as well with the FDA. So that'll be a huge milestone for the company. So really for these 18 months, really executing on the strategy of the drug development pipeline, building out further established relationships and co-development and licensing opportunities with our competitors, and then uplisting to a major exchange. That's really our goal here in the next 18 months.
Very exciting. And my final question is, if anyone wanted to learn more about the company or get in contact with you, or just learn more in general, if you want to share website, your stock symbol, any information you want to share with the audience in case they want to get more information.
Yeah, so our stock symbol is we're an OTCP company. We're listed as BWVI, Blue Water Venture Incorporated. And so just so folks know, we do have an open corporate action to change the name and symbol change. We're just waiting a response from them. And then you can find us on, we're on all the social media channels, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, I believe Instagram. And then, we are, and again, I encourage your audience to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I do communicate there as well. And then you can find us on psycheceutical.com. And there are some great videos that really go in depth onto our technology, a little bit about more of who we are, and certainly where we're going there in the latest updates.
Awesome. All right. Well, we are going to jump into questions. So the first one we have is from Kurto. Says, "Hi, Chad. Thanks for taking the time out of your..."
Looks like we lost Dustin Logan.
Yeah, can you see the question, Chad?
Oh, sorry, I lost connection there. I wasn't sure if it was Dustin or myself. Sorry about that.
Can you see the question on the screen?
Okay, let me see here. It cuts it off, Logan.
Yeah, I'll read it. So it says, thanks for taking the time out of your day to do this presentation. I'm asking on behalf of a small group, and we're wondering if there's any updates on a roadmap for the company with regards to corporate actions, audit, a potential uplist out of the OTC, or any rumblings you're hearing about progress in legislation.
Okay, yeah, great question. So yeah, the corporate action that we've filed with FINRA is still ongoing. So we hope to hear back from them this month. But in terms of the overall corporate action, we are getting ready to. We'll have the 2022 financial audit done by the end of February. We've already started the process of compiling all the documentation. My CFO, Michael Lassa, has done an amazing job of doing that. And we've got a commitment from our auditing firm to have that completed and wrapped up by no later than 2/28 of 22. So that'll fulfill that requirement. And again, based on my earlier statement, we are once we wrap up our next round of funding, we will file with the SEC fully audited financials, our Form 10. So we become a fully audited reporting company, and so that would lead us to right around August timeframe. To in the event, again, we just never know what FINRA is going to do. In the event they deny us for whatever reason, we will file the audit financials and then request the corporate name and symbol change. And we're targeting the latest to August to have that fully reporting approved by SEC and FINRA. So this year, we fully expect to have all those activities completed.
Thank you, and I'm back on. I having all sorts of issues with my internet, but we'll go to the next question. So, next question is it possible to get the slide deck somewhere? Do you guys have that on your website or anything?
Yeah, we do have it on the website, so folks can go onto the website and request the deck, and we'll go ahead and send that out.
Next question. I think you may have answered this one, but any timeline on getting the symbol changed through FINRA seems to be completely stalled.
Yeah, I just answered that, but yeah, we're in the process of working through the FINRA and that corporate action.
Got it. Then we got a bunch of random questions, but I'm going to go all the way down to 420RX asks, any intent on the ketamine delivery for chronic pain?
That's a great question, and that is part of our opportunity, if you will, for this particular compound. We're not completely remiss. However, the challenge, and again, this is where we look at the market and look at IP, the landscape, right, and where we have a clear opportunity. There are some existing IP from competitor companies that we would have to overcome some challenges there. But it is on our radar, and if we feel like that's something that we can move forward with a clear view in obtaining the IP and moving that forward, we will certainly do so. Great question.
Next question is from Barry B. Do you plan on raising the shares or reverse split?
Raising the shares. So yeah, we have a total of total number of allocated shares. I believe 3 billion is what we have, and then we will have to do a split. Once we uplist to a major exchange, as everybody knows, you have to have a minimum a price per share, right? A requirement. So we'll have to do a reverse split. Reason why we haven't done any of that as of yet is because we're very mindful of any dilutive actions for us, right, as internal shareholders and management team, but also to our entire shareholder base. So we will make that decision once we have the plan in place and the time is right to reverse those shares to meet those NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange requirements. But again, we will have, we don't, we're the last thing we want to do as a company is do multiple splits. That does not look good on the company, doesn't look good on future investment rounds. So we're very cognizant and have a great team to help support us in that.
Great. We're running up on time, but I'm going to take another couple questions. So Barry B is asking, do you have any more celebrity influencers that are interested in joining the company?
We've been approached by a couple other. We're very, very cognizant of who is a representative of the company. But if there's people out there that would love to talk to us about being part of representing the brand, we're all ears and open. The more eyeballs and the more more press we get, not only helps us but our messaging, but also just helps people become aware of what we're doing for the industry and really starts to change the narrative on psychedelics. So we're all about that.
Great. And next question is, since you guys are starting with ketamine as it's not highly restricted, how long do you anticipate seeing motion towards psilocybin delivery methods?
Yeah, I love that question. It again, just from an IP perspective, it's a very, very crowded field, as Dustin will probably tell you. But yes, matter of fact, we are in the planning phase with psilocybin right now. We believe that there is a clear path with both technologies we have. We're doing some preclinical testing right now to ascertain what that clear path of filing a provisional IP is. But we see psilocybin as a remarkable compound that not only touches mental health disorders, but again goes back to various neurological disorders. So we feel very, very strong that the indications can be further expanded beyond what we know about psilocybin today. And also, there's some interesting, I know Paul Stamets is on the forefront, and we had a great conversation in Wonderland, but there's some other very unique and interesting synergistic compounds that are not known today that hold some great promise. And I'll just leave the audience with that. So very exciting times.
And we're going to do one last question from Eddie Bells. Any plans on doing a media push with Zappy, Harrington, and others on social media to get the name out to a larger investor base?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, we've been held back by filing a provisional patent. So it's prevented us from doing a lot of media push and getting the name and brand out there, just because we didn't want to release too much information. And so we're at that point we can. So yeah, we're going to have a big media push, not only to discuss the upcoming trials, but as everybody knows on this call, there's going to be some major conferences like MAPS. There's some neurological conferences, neuroscience conferences, drug delivery technology conferences that we're going to be attending. We're going to be able to talk about our technologies and our results at those. So we expect to do a full, major corp press on multiple fronts, attending conferences, going after, publications. Again, we've been in Forbes twice now. We're going after some of the other big publications that have said, hey, if you do X, Y, and Z, we want to feature you in articles. So we're right at that. We're at the precipice of a lot happening with the results we're going to be releasing here shortly.
Very exciting stuff. And that's going to be our last question. Couple quick announcements on our end. We have our next Psychedelic Invest actually on Monday at 4:00 with the CEO of Reunion. They are the spin out from Field Trip. It's the drug development side. So very exciting for that. Also wanted to let everyone know that our parent company at Psychedelic Invest is Nucleus, and we're currently doing our own capital raise. So if anyone is interested in potentially investing in our parent company or likes the content or wants to support us, feel free to reach out. Chad, you lasted through the Investor Hotseat. You did a great job. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to the audience for joining us as well.
Yeah, thanks again, Dustin, to you and your audience. They were great questions. Appreciate the interaction, and always a great time seeing you. Appreciate, obviously, for what you do and as an advocate, somebody who's supporting the industry, not only with your platform, but also with your dollars and what you're doing to support it, Dustin. At Psycheceutical, we appreciate and value you so much, brother. So thank you again, man. Appreciate all you do.
Thank you so much. Everyone have a good evening. Appreciate it. Have a good one. Bye.